You know what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. The show goes on. This is my home. They're gonna need a fucking wrecking ball to take me out of here. They're gonna need to send in the National Guard, a fucking SWAT team, because I ain't going nowhere.
Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. As many of you know, I've been pretty frustrated with some of the things that's been going on the YouTube platform, especially in regard to my channel and how it's currently being throttled. But after doing a lot of thought, I've decided, rather than letting them win, I'm actually going to start working even harder, spreading even more information to help even more people. I'm also going to be spreading out on a few extra channels, putting a little bit more work into those as well. But I think that the clip at the beginning of this video pretty much sums up where I'm at with it. So at this point, I'm not going anywhere. So I found some pretty interesting things on the charts in regard to XRP when relating to what we've already seen occur within Bitcoin, which is a very similar cup and handle pattern. Now, Bitcoin formed this same cup and handle pattern and recently broke out, going on to set a new all-time high. The pattern that we're currently seeing forming on the XRP charts is very similar. So I'm going to be taking a look at these just to give you something to think about, and we'll go over a couple different synopses in regards to these charts. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into the charts. Use the coupon code 1776 for the entire month of July to get 25% off your first month of my Master Tier memberships on Patreon. I'll see you there. So if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, then you've probably seen this video right here where I was talking about this Bitcoin cup and handle pattern. Could be the key to the crypto alt season. I released this about 2 months ago. Now the chart that I used in this video is the chart that you're about to see. Now taking a look at that particular chart, which is on the daily chart, at the time when I released that video, the price was trading right up here, right around this upper trend line, and had yet to form this handle. I drew this line right here. This is the same line I drew in that video, showing of what the potential path could be if Bitcoin did break out of this pattern. And as you can see, zooming in on the pattern, it was very close. I've adjusted this handle just a little bit, but all in all, it was basically based upon this support right in this area moving out here. As you can see, this bullish fair value gap, which is known as a BISI, a buy-side imbalance, sell-side inefficiency, which basically means that where it formed right here on this candle, that the buyers were dominating the sellers, which caused price to gap up right here, forming this inefficiency, which I've marked out. Price basically was held up the entire time by this bullish fair value gap, dipping down here at its lowest on June 22nd before moving upward, breaking out of that upper rim line and going on to set a new all-time high right here. Now you can see when taking a look at this pattern that price came up, broke just up outside of it, kind of doing a fake out, fell back down in to start forming the handle, and made an additional attempt to break out, falling back even deeper, until price finally broke out, took out the previous all-time high, broke through this shadow line right here, which I have marked, which, if you're not aware of my jargon, is basically just a non-dominant trend line that I mark out as a reference point on the charts, rather than marking it out like this one that you see here, which is highlighted very bright. I kind of keep them in the background so that they don't add too much confusion to the overall chart, but they do give me that reference point. And you can see how price is consolidated just above it, that they do play into these charts, which is the main reason why I always use them. So now taking a quick look at this chart, we'll flip over and look at the current XRP chart. So now taking a look at the current XRP chart, you can see that we have formed a cup pattern right here, which started going all the way back to January 16th when we set the previous all-time high that we recently just broke right here, setting a new one right here. Price has now fallen down into this handle area right here. It has also formed a bearish fair value gap and is now currently trading below that within this handle area. Now it looks like if you compare this chart to Bitcoin, it looks like XRP is doing something similar to what we saw Bitcoin doing about 2 months ago. I'm not exactly sure where this handle line would be, but I do have a shadow line right here based off of these 2 points, which could also act as the lower handle. But I've marked it out right here on the charts because it makes more sense when correlated with these Fibonacci retracement levels right here. We also have this upper shadow line right here going from these 2 points up here to these Fibonacci levels. We have one on the bottom side going from these lower points right here off of these wicks going down to these lower Fibonacci levels. If you watched my most recent video that I put out yesterday, I talked about how it could be possible that price could come back down here, potentially retesting off of these bullish fair value gaps, highlighting this one in particular, which starts at about that $2.51 range. This line right here represents the upper trend line that I was talking about in that video. By marking out a Fibonacci retracement level coming off of the top here, off of these candle bodies, down to the bottom of the candle bodies here, you can see that those retracement levels fall right in line with these bullish fair value gaps on my chart, which is very interesting. As a lot of times you'll see that some of these things correlate with each other. We also have a weak doji reverse waterfall right down here marked out at $1.4725, which is a technique that is unique to my grafting trading strategy. If you don't understand what that means, marking off of this weak doji right here that's marked on the chart, waterfalls generally fall down. So a reverse waterfall would be when price falls up. So by marking off of this weak doji, which is the weakest doji in this group, resting just above this bullish fair value gap, a lot of times these tend to be targets for price in the future, but they can also be points of reversal. Now, I've talked about in my previous videos the possibility, in which I still believe is very likely to occur at some point in the future, that price could eventually come back down to this bullish fair value gap right around these Fibonacci levels. My target in particular would be this weak doji reverse waterfall that I have marked according to my grafting trading strategy. I actually have a limit buy order set just above this at $1.48.3 level, just a little bit above, so that if it does end up hitting this target, hopefully it will fill my order. Now you can see here on this cup and handle chart, I have a couple of lines marked out right here, all of which the dates are set here. Now these are all based on the number 9, which if you are a member of my master tier on Patreon, you already know why I've marked out these particular places, because they give us reference points in regard to the price action that we have already seen thus far. But I won't go into details on that particular matter because that's specifically for my master tier Patreon members. But what I will tell you is in regard to my XRP Moon Dream that many of you have already seen the videos on, in which I have based quite a few of my strategies recently, and which did not come to fruition, as I now believe that my timing was off, even though I still believe at some point we are going to see exactly what I talked about in those videos that talked about what I saw in that dream. And if we come here to September 7th, looking at this chart, this is actually the day that we have a full moon in September, which in this particular year is going to be a supermoon as well as a blood moon, which is known as a super blood moon, which means that the moon is going to be much larger in the sky. And the blood moon, the moon we are going to see that night, is going to be a full lunar eclipse. it's also moving into the harvest time, which if you look at the XRP moon dream, the water levels had completely receded, and when everybody had jumped off of the balcony, thinking that they were going to land into the water, the liquidity, it simply wasn't there because the water had pulled back. I've since been thinking about that much deeper, and growing up and living in a farming community, one thing that I know is in the spring all of the lakes and reservoirs are full, but moving into the harvest, which would be moving into September, generally the lakes are empty or very close to empty because that water has been used on all of the crops throughout the summer. And the other thing that I saw was when the moon came out over the hill after everybody had jumped off the balcony except for me, that the moon in the sky was unusually large for some reason. And it wasn't until recently that I realized we were going to have a super blood moon on September 7th. We are also having what's known as a black moon starting on the 23rd. Now don't mistake this as me being someone who looks at cosmology or anything in that regard, because I'm not that kind of a trader. I don't even really think that way, to be honest with you. I know that it plays into the charts that we see and definitely has its place, but it's not something that I generally look for. The reason why I've marked out the 23rd here, moving up into the full moon, and just a day beyond right here, and highlighting this area in pink, is because when everybody in my XRP moon dream was running frantically for the balcony to jump off, they were jumping into complete and utter blackness. When you looked over the edge, you literally could not see anything. All you could see was the balcony, a Roman-styled balcony with pillars that looked just like what you would see at the Colosseum in Rome. And another reason why I think that we might be seeing that in August is because the fact that it was set in a Roman scenario in that dream. The month of August was named after Augustus Caesar. So all of this lines up to me as a potential for what that dream could have meant, assuming that it means anything at all. I'm not saying that this is going to happen this way, but since I was wrong about the previous application of it, I have been thinking a lot about this, trying to figure out how that could potentially play into anything, if at all. So thinking about the black moon on the 23rd, moving through to September 7th when we see the super blood moon, perhaps this black moon represents that black phase I was seeing, representing the darkness in the dream where everybody was frantically jumping off the balcony trying to get out, get away, move away from. And since there was no liquidity because we were moving into the harvest, when the moon did come up over the mountain, which illuminated everything, showing that there was nothing under where everybody was jumping because the water had completely receded, as well as the moon being very large in the sky, that seems to match up very good with what we're about to see on September 7th, having the super blood moon. Now, this was something that I didn't know at the time when I was assuming that we would see a draw on liquidity before we saw the breakout. We all know now that that actually didn't happen, and price broke out without even touching that lower liquidity. I still believe at some point in time we will go after that liquidity. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I will be looking at this time frame right here between this pink on August 23rd, moving up to September 7th and 8th, when that super blood moon occurs, as a potential area on the charts when we could see something interesting. Now, whether or not this would be a movement downwards, I don't know. Perhaps it would be a breakout, because when looking at these charts, there's a lot of things that could happen here. Is price going to do what it did on the Bitcoin chart and consolidate for a while before breaking out? Could we potentially see a situation like what I saw in the XRP moon dream, where price is chopping around here, fakes out to the upside, before dropping down to lower levels, hitting potentially these fib levels, then moving upward? Perhaps something like that occurs, but it doesn't go quite that deep. Maybe price consolidates within this handle, drops down to this lower liquidity range here and these Fibonacci retracement levels before pulling back up, then breaking out to new highs. It could also be some kind of a situation where we see price chop around in here, breaking out to new highs here, setting up, bumping into these Fibonacci levels, then falling down to major levels, taking a draw on this lower liquidity at a later date. I'm not exactly sure, and I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but according to some of the things that I've been seeing recently, coupled with what I saw in that dream, the one thing that I can tell you is I will be watching this time frame right here to see what happens. I will also be watching each one of these points here based on these dates: August 2nd, August 11th, August 20th, August 29th, as well as September 7th, which is the night that we will see the super blood moon, all of which are based upon the number 9, which are based on a theory that I've had, which I showed to my master tier Patreon members, some of which have taken the knowledge that I showed them and have actually been expanding on it and correlating some very interesting things in regards to that with the Tesla numbers 3, 6, and 9 relating to vortex math, finding some very interesting things on the charts, which is exactly why I shared it in the way that I did. But all in all, I find it very interesting that the current chart of XRP looks very similar to what we saw the Bitcoin chart looking like 2 months ago, especially how it broke out of this, setting a new all-time high, which is exactly what happened on the Bitcoin chart. Now price is retracing down into this handle area because it seems like to me we could be seeing something very similar to what we saw with Bitcoin. And taking a look at these fib levels, if we do break out of here, based on those same 2 points I just talked about with these retracement levels here, that takes us up to the levels right next to this shadow line here, which ranges from about $5.04 for the 1.618 up here to about $5.55 for the 1.786. So if price does break out of here, this could be a potential area that we could see price move to. And if we move to the downside instead, whether it's previous to the move up or whether it's after the move up, the lower liquidity levels that I've been talking about for quite some time line up exactly with these fib levels as well, starting about that $1.42 level. So I think it's very interesting that these line up the way they do. We have these fib levels that line up with this upper shadow line if there's a breakout. We have these retracement levels right here, which correlate with this upper trend line of the breakout, as well as these bullish fair value gaps starting at that $2.50 range. Breaking below this down to lower liquidity, these fib levels line up with this fair value gap here. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I certainly like to speculate on these kinds of things, but I do have a feeling that whatever happens, it's going to be very interesting to watch, and we're very lucky to be at this point in history at a time where we can watch this occur. And if you're like me, you're very bullish on XRP and a host of other cryptocurrencies that are very likely going to be a major part of the global digital financial system that is currently being formed right in front of us. But let's just hope that that system falls into the right hands, because unlike any tool, the tool itself is not the danger. It's the hands that the tool is in that has the potential to create something good or something bad. But the tool itself is not the problem. Let's just hope that whoever is wielding this power has our best interest at heart. So thank you so much for your support. I appreciate each and every single one of you for all of your comments. If it wasn't for all the comments that I've received over the last few days, I think my decision to continue running this channel would have been completely different. But you guys definitely brought up some interesting topics. You got me thinking in ways that I wasn't thinking at the time. I really appreciate you doing that, having my back, and bringing me to the point to where I know that I'm going to double down, work even harder, and kick more ass. So good luck, everybody. Have a great day.